Alright folks, as promised, here is my full review of the Zombie Tools Reaver Cleaver. You've already seen the test that I did with it, or in case you haven't, the link to that video will be down below in the video description, as well as the relevant specifications like length and weight and price and all of that. As you can see, it's too big to really fit into the screen in my current setup here, which suits me quite well actually, and you'll see why in a bit. But let me start off by talking a little bit about the material. This is made of 5160 spring steel, which is a type of steel often used for stage combat swords due to its high resistance to breakage. It's a very tough and resilient type of steel. And it is an alloy steel. Its carbon content is 0.55 to 0.65%, and it also contains 0.7 to 0.9% chromium, which increases wear and corrosion resistance, as well as hardness, tensile strength, and toughness. It also contains 0.75 to 1% manganese, which has similar effects as chromium. The Rockwell hardness it is tempered to is 54. As you can see, it's really freaking thick. Like right next to my finger here. The thickness is 5 millimeters or a fifth of an inch. It's obviously designed to have this post-apocalyptic zombie wasteland aesthetic, which it pulls off very well. Especially with the finish. Looks like it's pretty old and well worn. And the leather wrap definitely also adds to its aesthetics. Which, by the way, the wrap is pretty well made. Look right there, the end is securely tugged in there. It's all holding itself together, so I don't see it come off anytime soon. That's very well designed, nicely made, full tang. Has this these metal handle scales here to give it a bit more thickness, and it's quite nice in the hand. Speaking of how it's in the hand, I'm going to talk about the handling first and then about the test results and its durability and cutting performance. So as far as the handling is concerned, I definitely like the long handle because it gives you that bit of extra leverage, which is very useful because this thing is rather heavy. So it's quite useful to have that, and it can actually be surprisingly agile in the hand because of that. You have such a long lever here that you can very easily maneuver it, and you can also choke up and down to either have more control if you're up here, or you can slide down if you want that much extra power. It's definitely comfortable in the hand. The only issue that I have with this is that the leather overlaps here, which in a way is good because it gives you a bit more, friction. But it's also a bad thing because it's a bit too much friction actually. Without gloves, if you were to keep swinging this for a while, this would probably be a blister generator. That's what I'm thinking. It's not the absolute most comfortable thing. And also what I noticed is when chopping hard material, specifically when chopping wood, I actually got quite a bit of hand shock, which I suppose is probably because it's metal handle scales rather than wood. And it's just a more or less thin layer of leather on top. So it does transfer a little bit of the vibration and impact to your hands, which can be somewhat unpleasant at times. But other than that, the general handle design is very good. Just a quick note on the finish here. It's very nice if you're into that kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland look. The finish towards the edge seems lighter, and it does definitely have a tendency to rub off. I can tell that it was definitely stronger in the beginning when I got it, but it did rub off to an extent. So it's not the most durable finish right here, even though further towards the spine, this here seems actually like very durable finish. Seems quite heavy duty. I don't think this would rub off anytime soon. I also appreciate how perfectly even the handle assembly is. It's very well made. You can see here the sandwich pieces, and where they join, it is very smooth. It's perfectly tight finish. I can hardly even feel the transition between the parts here because it's just that even and well finished. That's quite nice. So I like that even though it has this rough, battle-worn, post-apocalyptic look, you can still tell that it's well made. It's not the kind of stuff where somebody just makes something half-heartedly or not with enough skill and then just claims that, oh, well, it's a post-apocalyptic thing and they can't do any better. They definitely didn't use that as an excuse for inferior craftsmanship. Quite the opposite is the case. They definitely know their stuff, if you will, and you can tell. It's made in the US, by the way, in Montana. And that is also reflected in the price. It costs $375, which of course is quite a bit more than what you would pay if it were made in China. But I know that a lot of people value things made in the US or in Canada or wherever they happen to live. And they want to support the local economy. And quite often people have a bit more trust in things if they are made locally. So let's talk about how it performs and how durable it is. First of all, it came with a very nice sharp edge. As you can see right here, this is out of the box. And I did a lot of cutting and chopping and other tests with it, which I was pretty rough with it because this is obviously the kind of blade that can handle it. And I was very impressed with the results. Not only does it cut and chop like an absolute beast, it's also almost indestructible. I was easily able to chop a phone book in half with it and a bunch of other things as well. It's just absolutely devastating in terms of its cutting power. It is heavy. I certainly wouldn't want to fight someone with a sword with this, but fencing is obviously not what it's designed for. It's meant to kill zombies. And yes, I do know that zombies are not real. Shut your trap. It was even shot with a .22 rifle, and after cleaning off the lead stains, there was nothing, no damage at all. Like I said, I've been really impressed with the overall performance and durability of this cleaver. In fact, after all those tests and considering how thick and tough the steel is, I kind of got a little overconfident in it, and I overestimated what this kind of steel can do, and eventually I figured out a way to destroy it. So if you don't like to see blades abused and harmed, and if you hate destructive tests, then stop it right here, move on, nothing more to see. You will be hurt because this is what happened to it. Yeah, it is kind of tragic, but like I said, I got overconfident, and at the same time, unfortunately, I heavily underestimated something else, namely the power of 7.62x39, which is the same cartridge that the AK-47 uses. And, well, I thought it was a good idea to shoot this with the SKS. And, yeah, you can see what happened. Of course, now in hindsight, I feel kind of stupid for having misjudged the power of a rifle cartridge like that so much. I guess I was still kind of thinking in terms of handgun cartridges, which handguns were what I started out with when I got into firearms. And of course they are much weaker than rifle cartridges. But, you know, considering that this is what it took to destroy this thing, that is still pretty impressive. I couldn't have done it any other way other than shooting it with a rifle. This is really just way too freaking tough. Under normal circumstances, when you're just, you know, cutting and chopping things, this obviously wouldn't happen. It literally took an impact from one of these traveling at very high velocity to pull that off. Otherwise, yeah, super, super tough and sturdy. So overall, what do I think about it? Well, I definitely regret having destroyed it because I did enjoy it quite a bit. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay for it, but it's still kind of tragic. But the funny thing is, I actually afterwards took it out to just for fun to see what can you actually do with the remains. And it does still work pretty well, actually. I could still chop with it. It still performs pretty well. It doesn't have quite the same heft anymore because, well, less length and less weight and everything. It does, of course, have an influence on the cutting power, but it's still not too bad, really. So even if in a post-apocalyptic scenario you try to deflect bullets with this and it failed, well, you could still use the rest at least. But the problems that I have with it, the only problems are, well, for one, like I already mentioned, the grip is very abrasive and you do get quite a bit of hand shock when chopping a hard material like wood. So it's not the absolute most comfortable thing. Although when cutting softer materials, I didn't really feel it that much, at least no hand shock. It would be nicer if it wasn't overlapping that much. It's a bit too aggressive here. And the other thing is the weight, of course. If we go by the hypothetical zombie apocalypse scenario, this would be very cumbersome. It would tire you out pretty quickly, you know, hauling this around with all your other stuff. And yeah, it will be pretty exhausting to keep swinging all the time. Even though I do have to say that I was surprised by how quickly you can move it despite the weight because, well, of the long handle. With this long handle you can still, of course now it doesn't weigh as much anymore, but you can still swing it pretty easily, change direction easily, and it really handles quite well, especially for its size, and you do get quite a lot of performance out of this package. The other issue to consider, of course, is the price. $375. Well, it is made in the US, so that's part of the reason why. The other reason is the quality material and, you know, good craftsmanship. It's the question is it worth it for you? There are other alternatives, other dadao style choppers or war cleavers or whatever you want to call them, which do have about comparable cutting power, although probably not quite as much, and which also are very durable and tough, which only cost half or 3/4 of that price. However, the design is definitely unique, no doubt about it. I haven't seen anything else like this, so this is definitely a very special, unique, pretty badass looking design, and it's ultimately a matter of personal preference. Judging by the tests that I did and how it performed, how it handled and everything, I would say that you get what you pay for in this case. It is definitely, the quality is there for the price. I can definitely say that. As long as you're not being an idiot and shooting it with a fairly powerful rifle, you should be good. So rest in pieces. And thanks for watching.